What's up, YouTube? It's me, the artisanmc, and today I am going to review Last of Us Episode 8. Now, I have really been enjoying the show, and I didn't realize that this was one of the last episodes for this season. So, next week will be the last episode, episode 9. And so far, I've been pleased with this show. I really have. I still have not had an overwhelming desire to play the game, but I think playing the game would fill in a little bit more of the blanks that I have and give me the diversions that they took in the story, and especially in this episode. This episode opens with Ellie and Joel in the basement of a house after Joel has been stabbed in the gut, and Ellie has dragged him to this house in the basement and trying to figure out what to do with him. Is he going to die? Can she save him? Whatever. And what you find is that Ellie is trying to care for Joel as best she can, but she takes it upon herself to realize she has to get some food. And so she takes the rifle, she leaves Joel, tells him she'll be back, and she goes out into the wilderness to hunt for food. Now, on the opposite side of this situation, you have an opening with a group of people in what would look like a restaurant area. And there's a sermon being given by a man. And the man standing above these people giving a sermon, reading from the Bible, is named David. And he's passing what would pass as a eulogy for a member of their group that has died. And while one of the girls is there crying, he comes over to the girl and offers her some words, right? And comes to find out that the man who has died is her father or was her father. And the leader of this group, the preacher, David, tells her that she still has a father, right? And that she will be okay. And when the group breaks up, you find out from David when he talks to his second named James that they have about a week's worth of food left. That there looks to be about 20, 30 people here. And enough meat for a week is not enough. Not enough. Now, when the episode opened and I saw all the snow and stuff like that, and these people here, the first thing I started thinking was Donner Party. Like, there's nothing out here for these people to be eating. They got a week's worth of food. They about to resort to some cannibalism, right? And I say this shit like a joke. It was pretty much a joke to me. I'm just cracking on the environment and the situation. Like they gonna be eating people, right? Now you switch back over to Ellie and you find that she has tracked a rabbit. She has tracked a rabbit and she can't get a clear shot on it, can't get close enough to shoot it. Now I wondered why the hell she's trying to run up on a rabbit when she has a long rifle with a scope. I don't know. I would think with a long rifle with a scope, you shoot from a distance. You don't have to run up on shit. You don't chase it, you let the bullets chase it. And the bullets will catch it if you're accurate. But needless to say, she chases this rabbit and misses it. Now her next prey is fairly close, but it's a deer. She spots it, she takes her aim, and given the little bit of training she's had from Joel, she's able to get off a pretty decent shot to hit the excuse me, to hit the doe, but it scampers off because it's not a kill shot. Now she's pissed and she chases after the doe, and sure enough, she comes upon two gentlemen. David and James, who were standing there at the doe because they were out looking for food as well. And the doe died right in front of them, I guess. So now they're there and they're debating on taking this freshly killed deer before whoever shot it shows up. But to their surprise, Ellie shows up and she has the gun aimed on both of them. And so they follow her directions. Now, this is where you see a little bit of forthrightness from the character of David and the questioning from the character of James. From David's conversation with Ellie, she tries to bluff him that she is part of a bigger party. But as one of the brothers on the stream pointed out, that a bigger party wouldn't have sent the girl out to do the hunting, especially not by herself. They're not buying that, but they get that trying to get Ellie to come with them and it's stolen the virtues of what they have in their bigger encampment. She hits on the fact that they have medicine and she wants some of it. And for medicine, she will trade half of the deer that she has killed. David agrees to this and sends James back to their little village to get the medicine, some penicillin, and then syringe. And while he stays there with Ellie. And while he and Ellie are sitting together, while James runs off to go get the syringe and the penicillin, they have a little bit of a dialogue to where Ellie gets an understanding for who he is and what his group is. And she learns that David is a preacher who was once a teacher, and that he became a preacher after the fall of civilization and led a group of people who all follow him. Is that the group that he's a part of? And he wants her to come with him and join. Now, during this conversation, smartly, Ellie is not falling for some of this shit that this guy is saying, but stupidly, she keeps her back in the wrong direction. And the wrong direction is where James comes back and draws a bead on her from behind. And David gets him not to shoot her, but to, let her escape, so to speak. And what David tells Ellie before she leaves is that one of the men in their group went out on a hunting expedition to look for food, and he was killed. 4 went out, 3 came back. And one that came back was killed by a man with a little girl. And so David has put it together that Ellie is possibly that girl, and that the medicine that she wants is for the man that was with her who killed the other member of his group. But yet and still, David and James let Ellie go away with the penicillin and the syringe, and they go ahead and take the half a deer back to the settlement that they have. Now, this is a calculated move in the sense that they figure they can just catch up to her later. Getting food back for everyone else is more important, which it is. Now, when Ellie gets back to Joel with the penicillin, this is the part in the show that I have been griping on since the very beginning, is that in one moment, you will see these characters being really smart, really smart. And in the last episode, episode 7, we got to hear from the federal captain or lieutenant, whoever the hell he was, talking about how smart Ellie was. Well, in this episode, when Ellie gets back with the penicillin, She doesn't know where to stick Joel with this stuff. Now, for me, that seems really stupid. Like, you went 1 minute where she was really smart in being able to sneak up on two grown men who know the terrain in the area in the snow with them not being able to hear her. So she's smart enough to do that, but she's not smart enough to figure out where to stick Joel with this penicillin. Now, for me, I'm thinking a shot anywhere would do, but she goes to sticking him in the wound, which I would think would be a bad idea. Don't stick him right in the wound. That would be painful as hell. Even if he was catatonic, it'd probably wake him up, right? Just from excruciating pain. But she figures it out, jabs the needle in the his hole, his stab wound that she sewed up, and injects it in there and leaves. Now, in the meantime, David and James have gotten back to the camp, and word has spread that there was a girl. And the rest of the settlement kind of figures out that it may have been the girl that was responsible for Alex, the one that was killed from their party, being killed. And his daughter demands some revenge. Now, in hearing this, David goes over to the daughter and smacks the discipline out of her ass, smacks her to the ground, just backhanded, gorilla pimp style, right? And this is where you see a little bit more telling that David ain't on the up and up. David is something that's off with him because he sits the girl back down and tells her that she thinks she lost a father. She has not lost a father. Her father was still here, and he doesn't like being interrupted when he's talking. Now, this is a kind of creepy vibe because at that moment they bring out dinner, and he sits down at the table with this girl and her mother, like he is now stepdaddy in this situation. And it's kind of weird, right? Kind of weird because he went from being the super nice guy to all of a sudden he's smacking the shit out of little girls. Now, in an Old Testament kind of way, that kind of makes some sense. But yeah, he's not seeming so cool. Now, what he tells everybody at dinner is that they will go out and look for Ellie and Joel at first light. When the sun comes back up, they'll go out and they'll go look for them. They'll follow the tracks in the snow, but there's no rush, right? So everybody follows his lead, and everybody's a little bit leery of him, but they all follow his lead. Now, by the next morning, they're out with their party going through this little neighborhood looking for Ellie. And what you realize is that where Ellie and Joe set upon these four people at the college campus and where they settled into the house wasn't that far away from these people's settlement. So they got back to this neighborhood pretty quick. And they're looking around. And Ellie, while feeding the horse, is tipped off that they're here and they're looking. And she's panicking. She runs back in the house, goes downstairs, gives Joel a knife, tells him that people are here, and she's going to try to lead them away. She goes back upstairs, tries to block the door with a little armoire, and goes out, takes the horse, and goes to the opposite end of the streets and starts shooting at the little hunting party that's there to get them to kind of chase her. And they do give chase. Now, while David is saying not to kill her, that he wants her alive, some of these other guys in the group have different ideas, namely James. When the opportunity arises, James takes a bead on her and shoots her horse while she's trying to escape, killing the horse and throwing Ellie from the horse into the snow, which is kind of funny to see. Now, for me, in my thinking, this is a golden moment for them because they now have meat. Since all these people are hungry, they just killed a horse. That's a lot of good eating. That's a lot of good meat right there, right? But when James, the one who shot the horse, comes up upon Ellie and the other members of the party come to him, they tell him to do it. They want him to take revenge on this little girl for the death of one of their own. They want to kill her right then. And it's broken up by David when he shoots in the air and reinforces with them that he meant he wanted her alive. And he scoops up Ellie and walks her away and orders two of the other guys to drag the horse carcass back to the settlement, and the remaining guys, three guys, to go and, go house to house looking for the man, right? Looking for Joel. Now, when they go looking for Joel, they do one of the things that's tactically stupid in this sense is that they split up and they go house to house, but one at a time, one by one. They split up. And one of the guys happens upon the right house where Joel is at. And Joel is still laid up, but he's pretty conscious at the moment. And he hears the footsteps in the floorboards above him. He hears the bookcase being pushed away from the door. So he knows somebody is in the house and coming down there where he is. Now, when the guy gets down there, he does not see Joel. And this works to Joel's advantage because while the guy is searching the basement, he turns and Joel is able to stab him with the knife from behind in his spinal column and take him out pretty handedly and quietly. Now, the fact that these guys split up is beneficial for Joel because it gives him the opportunity to silently take out these guys one at a time without drawing attention to himself by using guns or anything like that. And it gives him time to sneak because he's not to his 100% full faculties. Now, through a little bit of hook and a crook, a little bit of, trickery on his part, he is able to subdue the last two guys and tie them up and start getting information out of them about where they came from and where is Ellie. And during the course of Joel's interrogation, he's beating on one of the dudes and he stabs him in the thigh, right at the knee. And I squealed like a girl because, empathetic as I may be, that shit hurt. It hurt. That's it's gross, but I loved it. So by this enhanced interrogation method, Joel is able to get some information from the guy about where they are and where their settlement is. And after that, Joel kills him, even though he told him he wasn't going to kill him. That the other guy was going to live. Now, in a comical move to me, that once he kills that guy, he goes over to the other guy who is fussing and cussing at him about you told him you were going to let him live. Why'd you tell him? He told you the truth. Why'd you kill him? And he said, oh, I believed him because I believed him. And he kills the other guy too. Now, this is not really something to laugh about, but it's a show. It's not real life, but that makes the most sense. You got the information. He doesn't need both of those guys. So now 3 more people are dead. And the one thing I'm thinking of is that more dead bodies out here in the snow. All right. Now, when you cut back to Ellie is in a jail cell, a makeshift jail cell at this place. And my question is, how the hell do they have a jail cell made? Why do they have a cell made up here? Why? It doesn't make any sense. But what you find out is David is there, and David is really trying to seduce, in a sense, Ellie into joining their party and telling David her name and who she is and where the other guy is. But Ellie refuses, but for a little bit, there is some interesting dialogue about the guy knowing that Ellie has a violent heart, just like he does. Now, in watching the behind the scenes stuff at the end of this episode, I don't really buy the fact that this guy just knew Ellie from one time, seeing her, that he was just his own. It made for a good scene, but I'm not really buying it. Okay. So the scene plays out where this guy is really trying to sweet talk and sip speak her and comes to the cage, and you get the understanding that David ain't on the up and up. David is creepy. He is probably a pedophile. Now he said he used to be a teacher, and the way he's talking to Ellie and the way he talked to the other little girl is creep factor on 10. He's a perv. He's a perv. He's a pedo. And I don't like that. So at this point, where he puts his hand on the cage and trying to make some intimate contact with Ellie, and she puts her hand on the cage, and then he tries to, cup and caress her hand. She breaks his fucking finger. Now, bravo on that, but my thinking would be to grab him by the wrist, pull his arm through the hole in that cage, and then break said arm. But because she doesn't do that, she just breaks his finger, and then there's a little bit of scuffle for the keys, a bit of Ellie's head meeting hard bars repeatedly by David, and him being extremely pissed off at Ellie and telling her exactly what's going to happen to her. Now, while Ellie was in this cage, she tried to get out. She was trying to work the bolts on the latches on the fencing and stuff like that. And then she sees something that makes her stop. When David came into the room, he told her what it was. What she saw on the ground was an ear, some pieces of flesh and blood, and realizes that, yes, these people are here starving in the snow, but they're eating other people. They're eating their dead. Now, while this can seem very objectionable and can turn everybody's stomach, in a survival situation, that is probably what's going to happen. Probably what's going to happen, especially if you're somewhere and it's snowing. Now, the funniest thing that came out of the conversation from the watch party was that this story would have been better told if it wasn't a bunch of religious people, because that's the frequent whipping boy for the Rainbow Coalition. It would have been more interesting if it was a bunch of vegans up there stuck in the snow, reverting to cannibalism. That would have been more interesting because that's a religion right now. So a bunch of atheist vegans would have been more entertaining to me rather than some religious kooks and the leader that's a pedophile, an abuser. Sick of that trope. So what David tells Ellie after she has broken his finger and he's going to leave is like, yes, tiny pieces is what it was that she said. And like, yes, they're going to kill her. They're going to kill her and they're going to cut her up and they're going to eat her. So David leaves. Now, while David is gone, you cut back to Joel, and Joel finding this settlement and getting into some of the other outbuildings and discovering filleted people hanging up, like no skin, just hanging up from the rafters, like the predator got in there, and they just hanging up in there. He may not be completely horrified, but he is none too pleased with what he sees. He understands the situation very clearly. Now, when David comes back into the room with Ellie, he comes with James, and James and David go at Ellie to get her onto this table so they can kill her. and start cutting her up. And in a moment of vengeance, Ellie bites David on his hand, right? Smack her around and get on the table. And when she's on the table, she yells out that she's infected. And they don't believe her. So she tells them to roll up her sleeve. And then they look at her sleeve and see all the bites on her. Now, what she is doing is actually stalling for some time, but it does give her an opening. So while David is thinking it's bullshit that she should have turned already if she was bitten, the fact that she just bit him means that he's infected. And he can't say for sure one way or the other. While James and David are debating that, Ellie gets a hold of the butcher knife that David was going to use to kill her. And she, in turn, hacks this thing into not Joel's, but James's neck. And James goes down. Now, while she rolls off the table and starts to beat feet, David busts a couple of shots at her, but he doesn't get her. Now, David follows her upstairs, and this is where it turns into The fucking Shining, where David is searching for her. Where David is searching for her in this restaurant type of area, and Ellie is hiding. And the first weapon that Ellie finds is some of the logs out of the fireplace or the cooking area, and she throws it at David, missing, but catching the curtains, and the curtains on fire. And David just watches it. He sees it burning. He doesn't stop it. He keeps focused on Ellie and trying to get to Ellie. Ellie finds her second weapon being a knife, steak knife. And in a moment of David having his guard down from behind, Ellie runs up on him, stabs him in the freaking gut. And then we get to the next objectionable point where David actually subdues Ellie, gets her onto the floor, kicks the holy shit out of her while she's scrambling for something under the table, and then pins her down and proceeds to tell her what he's going to do and how he likes it, and goes for his buttons because he is about to get the grape on this 13-year-old girl. This was rough, in a sense. Rougher than the grown men being killed. This was the character of David was not too on the up and up to begin with. Now, where I may have my objections to them using the writers using the same trope of some religious cultist pedophile, the shit does happen. I don't like it, but it does happen. And this character from the jump was not on the up and up. You could tell, right? He goes for the grape on Ellie. Ellie, luckily, gets a hold of the knife that David had that he dropped when she stabbed him. And she hits him with it. And when he goes back and falls on his back, she goes on top and starts going Iron Chef on his ass with that cleaver until she gets tired. Now, you don't see it, but you get the idea of what's going on, right? Which I'm fine with. Totally fine with. Because, yeah, child rapist, yeah, you can get everything. You can get it all. No sympathy. Now, once Ellie is finished doing a Rorschach on David, she runs outside and then she is grabbed by somebody. And the person that she is grabbed by is Joel. And when she is turned around and recognizes that it's Joel, she starts crying and just hugs him. And Joel tells her, "I got you, baby girl," which is a stretch for that character because he is now relating to her in a familiar way, in a loving way. That here he is coming to rescue her, and he got her. And when he finds her, her face is covered in blood, and she's hysterical. So he knows something went down. Doesn't ask her, gives her his coat, and they leave there. Now, at this part, it's good, but I'm sitting there wondering where the hell is the rest of the settlement? There's a lot of women and children here. I don't think between Joel and Ellie, they killed all the men. I wonder where everybody is. Nobody showed up with the restaurant area being on fire. Nobody showed up to put it out. Nothing. So I'm wondering where these people are. I don't think Joel went through town and killed all of them. I don't think that. Could be. I don't think that's what happened. So I'm not sure what happened after that with those people. But that ends the episode. Now, while I enjoy this episode, there was a lot more action in it. There was a lot more brutality in it. Um, I don't like the trope of religious people being bad and religious people who follow a leader being stupid, and that leader is always some sadist pedophile or something. That's look, man. I don't have a problem with anybody's particular faith. It's what you choose to do. I just don't like hypocrites. If you that's the way you live that way. Don't be skirting and bending the rules all over the place. But I don't like seeing them drug like that every time somebody with a rainbow agenda wants to write a story. They want to drag somebody religious. To me, that's too much of you trying to work out your own personal demons on somebody else. You know, I don't like that part. But it made sense for the story that these people did resort to cannibalism. It did. And I called that right off when the episode started. And I don't know anything about this stuff. But for what I saw, a lot of snow, people trapped in, not a lot of food. First thing in my mind was the Donner Party in the movie Alive. That with snow means no crops. With cold means struggle. And what that struggle means, people are going to have to live in some different ways to survive. And there is some stuff that will happen that you might not talk about if things, the world went upside down and all of a sudden turned back the other way. You might not talk about that. But you would have known you did what you had to survive. That's what they had to do to survive. So it's not surprising. It is what I think would happen in a post-apocalyptic we out of food situation, but we got a lot of kids around. So for an eighth episode, I liked it. Joel being okay, getting to show a little bit of his brutality and why he survived so long. And even Ellie having to dig deep and just find the animal within to save her own life. I will be interested in seeing what episode 9, the next episode, has in store for these characters and if they address that at all. Because Joel's going to have to know what happened to her there, that she was almost great and they were going to cut her up and eat her. But this is not the time at the end of the episode to reveal all that. They got to get away from there first, put some distance between them and that settlement. Then they can have a conversation about what the hell was going on there. And I will be there for that conversation. I'd be all in for hearing that. But that's it. That's it. That's my review of episode 8 of The Last of Us. I did enjoy it. It was a good watch. It did move along quickly. Ellie only looked stupid in a couple of parts when we were told already in the last episode she was really smart. Smart people do dumb shit too, I guess. So that's it. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.